and welcome to the Noisy Librarian Podcast, brought to you by Te Mata Puna Library and Learning Services. I'm Rachel, your host for today's episode, and I'm so pleased to welcome back Librarian Claire. How are you doing, Claire?
Kia ora, I'm doing well today, thank you, Rachel.
Good, thank you. So thanks for joining us again. You were with us for episode 1. We didn't scare you off, so that's pretty good.
Very happy to be back again.
Oh, good, thank you. Thanks again for joining us. And actually, on this side of the table, we have some newbies today, and these aren't your friendly neighbourhood librarians, but rather your super cool learning advisors. Welcome, guys. We've got Mark and we've got Rachel.
Hi.
Hello. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are we doing today?
Good, thank you.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rachel.
Have we ever been on a podcast before? This is new experiences?
First time.
First time. Well, thank you so much for coming along to join us. We're very grateful.
Great to be here.
So what we're going to talk about today. So we're talking about digital library services and you. It's like a match made in heaven. You know, you got to swipe right for that Tinder. We're talking about our leading digital services, our collection, and why and how the shift in focus to digital services has improved the learning journeys that we offer. So that's a pretty cool and meaty subject we're going to talk about today. Interestingly, when I was writing notes and writing scripts, thinking about this particular topic, the first thing that came into my head, and I'm actually looking at you now, Mark, is the opening sequence to Ghostbusters. Okay, so we have the librarian running around in the basement and all of the, in fact, what are they? Catalogue cards? They're all popping out of the stacks or...
The drawers.
The drawers, thank you, Mark. Yeah, pulling out of the drawers and she's running around screaming. And I just thought, actually, the days of those kind of paper-based things are completely gone. But yes, I really enjoyed watching that clip this morning, and actually seeing as it's podcast research, it's completely acceptable in the workplace. So I love my job, really. And that's actually 1984, that film. So I do find it an interesting kind of place to start with, paper-based like that. Like what were libraries like, you know, before the kind of digital revolution? You know, what was it like to have more paper-based systems? You know, does anybody remember it? Do we miss the good old days at all in favour of digital?
Well, I guess that was the environment where I first started working in libraries, Rachel, and while it was never as exciting as it was in Ghostbusters, you know, no spirits manifesting, no cards flying out of the drawers, that was what we knew, that was what we worked with, and that was what our customers were accustomed to. I think because of the way that it was set up, a system set up by librarians for librarians to use, and a lot of the time that was when we were doing a lot more work for our customers than we do now, when we've created an environment where people are much more sort of like self-sufficient, have much more confidence, and take much more ownership of doing their literature searches. I mean, we never do literature searches for people now, whereas back then that was what you did all the time. But then that's getting to 39 years ago.
Wow.
So since Ghostbusters was made.
But I think it would be cool to have a think about why we've moved to more digital resources. I think, you know, pandemic might be one accelerator of these type of things, but I think here in Te Mata Puna and AUT, we've been quite leading and forward-thinking in our transition from traditional library practices to more digitally focused or a digital-first approach. And I think that goes from the books, but also things like our online workshops, our customer service. We talked about library chat last time, and also about, you know, your library on Canvas. So we've got a huge amount of learning materials available online versus coming into the space to physically talk with a person. We do that too, but actually the online offering is quite extensive. So what do we think the benefits are to the students in particular for online collections and online workshops and resources, that type of thing?
Could I say something about my own experience?
Of course, please, Mark.
So if I reflect on when I was doing my postgrad studies, I was delighted to realise that the resources like books and articles were available to me online, because I was studying part-time, working full-time, had a young family.
Wow.
So I previously had no idea that was possible. I had a much older version of libraries in my mind, which I think a lot of our students still maybe maintain. So when I realised, it's not just, I don't have to go into the library, I can do this from home. It was just a fabulous experience. And I barely ever actually went to the physical library, only if there was a book that I had no other option to get. So it was a wonderful movement.
So it's time saving, it's comfort. In fact, I was laughing with somebody else, just speaking to a colleague about the online workshops. We're trying to, see what time slots are popular in online delivery versus in-person delivery. And in fact, must be something to be said about watching a workshop in your pajamas, you're making your dinner, you're listening. I guess you can achieve a bit more, perhaps, if you can be at home or if you have access to these things online so easily versus coming into a space.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I think access and availability are two really big things in terms of students being able to access these things. And again, there are lots of issues nowadays. I think I was a poor student back a long time ago, and I think that those issues financial issues are still around, and it's expensive to come into the city or to come onto campus and find the things you need. So if we can make everything we have available and easy to access, then students will come and find it and can do it around their busy lifestyles. I think we used to think that students would study from 9 till 5 or like a normal traditional day perhaps, but actually they're working, some of them are parents, some of them are looking after other people. So that idea of fitting in your research around your life and it being 24/7. I know that we can see students have accessed things in the middle of the night or enrolled for a workshop at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's
wow, they need to get some sleep. I mean, I'm not sure when I was a young student I'd be enrolling in things at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would be dead to the world asleep. But I think you make a really interesting point. I think last time we talked about not being a library that's open for 24 hours. Back in my day, the University of Warwick had a short period of time where it was open for 24 hours. You could physically go at any time of day or night, which is crazy to me now. But, in fact, with these digital resources, they are available 24/7. So although our physical spaces are not open, you can still get most of what students might want or need, or staff members as well.
I think despite all of our best intentions, a lot of the time we end up working on our assignments fairly close to when they're due.
Yep, guilty.
It's good to be organised, and if you can be, that's always the better way to do things, I guess. But I think in reality, a lot of people are, trying to fit things in around busy lives, and you can just access your library on Canvas resources, as you said, 24/7, and also when you're actually doing the assignment. So if you go there, you'll see examples of how to do the searching, how to do the reading, the writing, the presenting. Plus, you'll see examples that are about the subject that you're doing. So all you really need to do is remember that it's there. And if you're not sure about some aspect of it, so that could be at 3 in the morning, there will be an example that will be of use to you when you actually need it. That doesn't mean you can't come in and see someone about these things as well, but that immediacy is really great.
And don't they always say you get the best ideas when you're brushing your teeth or in the shower or something like that, so you can kind of dash out and you can be working on your stuff at home. So I think let's back up just ever so slightly for the students and staff members who might be listening to this. Would somebody mind just explaining what your library on campus is?
Yes, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Please do.
Basically it's a set of really, I would say, amazing resources that show you how to do the research, the reading, the writing and presenting in your assessments. It's something you can see on your dashboard when you go into Canvas, called Your Library. Just click on that and you will see all these resources organised in different parts of how you would go about your assignment. So when you're researching and reading, when you're writing or presenting, and also when you come to do the editing and the proofreading at the end. And of course, the big one that we all love to talk about all the time, referencing.
Woo! APA, come on down.
Can't get enough of the referencing. But basically, as I was saying, the benefit is it's available to you when you're doing your assignment. And if you look at what the instructions are, they've said, synthesize this or analyze that. What does the lecturer actually mean? And what you can do while you're trying to do whatever that is, the synthesizing or the analysing, just have a look in your library on Canvas and you'll find some examples from your school, so you can see how it's done and what your lecturers are expecting.
And this is quite new. I say quite new. I think this was launched in its kind of 2.0 in January. Was that right, Mark?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it came out last year initially. We've talked to students about what we created last year, and we've made some improvements and some changes, and we're doing the same thing this year. If I was going to say a little plug here, we will be asking for more students to come and talk to us about the current version. So I think, if nothing else, go and look at it with that in mind. Yeah,
absolutely. Just remember, anybody listening, we give lollies away, all these things that we do when we're offering feedback. So, hey, if you want some lollies, come on down.
And just coming back to your library on campus, the idea is as well, accessibility is that you only have to go to one place. You've got your course materials, course resources, everything's available on campus, and everybody has access to that library tile on your campus.
That's right. It's super easy to find.
Yeah.
And I think what is interesting, I think this is probably going a little bit more into the future about the capability of your library on campus. We're hoping to embed resources, aren't we, to link directly out from
we're
essay
already
briefs
doing
and things. We're already doing it. That's fantastic. So actually it makes it even easier for students to kind of get the understand their brief in a little bit more detail.
In fact, if you're looking at your assignment instructions in one of your courses and you don't see any links to how to synthesize or what is a case study, maybe just have a word to your lecturer, and they can always get in touch with us. We'd be really happy to hear from them. Or you, actually.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think Emma, our podcast producer, was talking last time about library chat is available on your library on campus. I think it's a little bit hidden, but I think it's there. So if anybody has issues when they're looking, they have a resource in terms of getting in touch with librarians.
And it's a real person talking to you, not a bot.
No robots here. It would be super cool, but no. I think one interesting thing that I noted when I was, again, thinking about this episode was the issue about digital equity. And I know that our VC here at AUT is really big on equity across the board and issues in tertiary education across the country. So I think in terms of a digital move or a shift in focus to digital in terms of our society, are we set up enough to offer those with lower socioeconomic backgrounds to kind of access digital resources? I think I lead this point with saying that, in fact, in Te Mātapuna, we have a whole host of computers and facilities, so students can come on down. Again, we're not open 24 hours, but for those who are not able to purchase their own computers or may have issues with sharing devices with siblings or other family members, I think we try to contribute in that area. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm getting a bit serious now, but I think it's an interesting point.
Yeah, we're not open 24/7, but we do open quite late Monday to Friday, and we'll be open for an extra hour until 11 p.m. on those weeknights for those last-minute assignments of those final assessments that are so important. And we'll also be open for longer hours on weekends. Normally it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, and that seems to be a satisfactory period for the students. But for extended hours, we'll stay open until 10, so they've got an extra block of time to use the computers. And IT also actually run a 24/7 on-site service during extended hours, only at Manukau South and Waihoratu City, but hopefully that's enough choice for people.
Well done, IT. They're our heroes. If they're operating that, bravo.
Yeah. And then just thinking about that issue of equity, there are laptops that can be borrowed for short periods of time if that's what they're needed for, if that's more convenient than having to be fixed to an on-site location. Well, my understanding is that you can also lease laptops for longer periods of time for a whole semester. So I think, what you do to support digital equity through those measures is a good start. I think the hardest part is actually getting the message out to students that those resources are available. We still get inquiries about that.
So communicating these points of value. I suppose even things like our whānau rooms on campuses, rainbow rooms, things like that, people often ask the question, of course, we have these facilities. But I think, like I was saying, AUT has a big commitment to not only educational equity, but digital equity as well. And I think that's why we can support our students to success through these measures.
I'd say another change that we've seen as well is in a lot of the workshops and around campus, you see actually people using phones for everything. So actually you can access the app, your library on campus, on your phone. So whatever you have, hopefully you can access and get the resources that you need. And there are different ways of accessing things, and there are ways of downloading things or printing things if you still need hard copies as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
And you can use your phone to borrow books as well. If you've got the AET app downloaded onto your phone, people will often leave their student card behind at home. They never leave their phone at home.
That's true.
And it works on the self-check machines as well as being able to use them to borrow at the desk.
Okay, excellent. So if you haven't got the AUT app, go ahead and download it now. I think I have it. Does everybody have it on their phones?
Yes.
I assume we all have to have it as librarians. Oh, that's good. That's good. And I think moving on to talk about the pandemic a little, I guess we're still in some level of COVID times here. But I think across the world, usual services that we could kind of come to expect all shut down. I suppose that included libraries, and not just, higher education libraries, but community libraries as well. So I think we were leading with pivoting towards digital collections and that type of thing, and creating new study spaces as a benefit of that. The stacks are eliminated, so we're just filling the spaces with students and desks and beanbag chairs. But the pandemic kind of changed a lot of things pretty much overnight, and I guess we had to adapt a little bit there. So things like the online workshops and online resources, and even things about processes around physically returning books. I guess that all had to change. Does anybody have any experiences around those times to share at all?
Well, myself and a number of other library staff were responsible for setting up and supervising bookable individual study spaces. They were all organised so that we were compliant with physical distancing requirements, mask wearing, regular cleaning, PPE, hygiene and all of that. And these were tremendously popular, and I think sometimes we didn't have enough spaces for all the people that needed them. But the message we were getting clearly from the students was that, the option to access library resources remotely was important, but it was also important to come in and have a space of calm, quiet, safe and uninterrupted study. There was no competition for their attention, no disruptions. And they were really good, actually. They worked with us really well to make sure that, the spaces were continued to be safe. They were very responsible and helpful. And I think that was one of the things that probably contributed to our sense of how scarce our space can be at times, and sort of like thinking very hard, how hard do we really need to hang on to a book that we've had for 20 years and hasn't been borrowed in the last 10? And you can obtain copies through the collection sharing interlibrary loan resources, because 5 other universities have got them in the country and it can be with you in about 24 hours. So I guess it's about making decisions. It sort of like prompted more reflection on, what resources are important for students, and space is a biggie, as well as the digital resources.
So I guess prioritising was kind of key, to think about what services need to go online as quick as possible and what resources should we prioritise there, and then how do we maximise the spaces. So I think that's a wonderful outcome, I suppose, if we want to see some silver linings, is that a lot of organisations have been forced to make these decisions, sometimes easy ones like that one, getting rid of that book that no one's borrowed in 10 years, but actually maybe some decisions weren't quite as easy as those. So I think it's kind of interesting to reflect on the services the students maybe now come to expect from our libraries, after the pandemic. Do they expect everything to be available online? I know there's a push to get more people back on campuses, not just at our university, but others. But I think there's a balance between being safe at home, but likewise that could be a crowded space and you might need a space to go to. But likewise, if you didn't want to do that, you can access all of your materials that you need in order to be successful at your qualification.
I think we had some conversations just about the social aspect, actually, the coming into campus and seeing other students, and also having incidental conversations often. At the end of a lecture, you might be talking to somebody and sort of get a question answered about your assessment that otherwise you have to go away and then write an email and ask someone if you're online. So I think there are benefits to being face-to-face and being able to see and talk to your peers and your lecturers. But then also there is a space for online, and we've seen sort of an increase in sort of evening online
That's so interesting.
access. And I think, again, lots of people work, so people are working part-time while they're studying. That idea of sort of a 5:30 in the evening, perhaps it's just before dinner, or you can sort of fit it in and then still be around to do all the things that you need to do for your family or for your housemates or wherever you might live.
It could also be just the times that we have workshops available during the day just clash when you've got your lectures or your tutorials or your labs. So that evening time tends to be when other classes aren't happening and there is a space.
Yeah, and the workshops are also recorded, as I understand, or we have a version online, like one time it's recorded and that's available. So if students, staff members, whoever can't access those live sessions or in-person sessions, then actually there's another resource as well on top.
Yeah, so via the Your Library on Canvas workshops page, we will have presentation slides and a nice concise video of the content of the workshop. So not 50 minutes that you have to wade through, but just the teaching points.
Actually, if you are pressed for time, whether that's because of your commitments or your assignment is coming up right now, then actually something more condensed would be really useful to have.
And the benefit of coming to the live workshop, whether you're doing that online or coming to one of our on-campus ones, is that you've then got a chance to ask questions, as you say, and practice. So the workshops tend to be quite practical, and whether you're doing them online or on campus. So that's the benefit of coming. And I would say that if you've got questions around, am I writing well? Do I need to learn anything about how to engage with my reading or my searching skills? If you've got any of those sorts of questions, and I think probably everyone does to some degree, those workshops are a great place to go and find out where you're at and what you might need to know more about. And you don't really know, of course, what you don't know. So
actually it's worth browsing just to see what topics might be of interest to students now or in the future in terms of their studies. One other thing that we also do that perhaps we should talk about here in terms of digital space is social media. And in fact, I do love social media personally. It's such great fun. And I love to keep an eye on other libraries. And some people do some really fun work. So again, in terms of communicating information, social media is another avenue to kind of tap into that information or links. So in fact, if a student or staff member doesn't necessarily know where to start on our website or what have you, there might be something on social media that can help them get to where they want to go. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, go ahead and do that. And I think one of my final questions on this topic will be around what does the future look like for libraries and for digital services? We've paved the way for some great learning spaces and some great learning journeys. And again, with AI technology kind of coming about and growing, I do wonder what services will look like in sort of 1 year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. Will there be any books at all? Will we be, scanning books out using a little chip in our wrists or something like that? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or any cool ideas in terms of what might be coming up in terms of digital services.
We mentioned ChatGPT. I mean, we operate a library chat service, not for such long period. It's mainly sort of 9 till 7 on weekdays and 11 till 5 on weekends. And we had a huge uptake in the chat service during the pandemic because that was the key point of service contact until we could have some kind of service operating on site. We've always tried to sort of think about how we can have some degree of pre-prepared answers for frequently asked questions, and we do feel that being able to speak real time with another person via the chat services is something I think the students really value. But at the same time, if we were to go through another period of intense demand, and that was what it was like during the pandemic, I think the sort of demand nearly doubled during that first year. I think we sort of went through 1,000 inquiries in that space of time. It would be good to be able to use AI to develop some more of these straightforward answers to straightforward questions. Like, it's very evident that you can direct them to your library on campus, and that's a gift for the staff who are providing the service via chat. We're always referring people to those resources. Just something to create pre-prepared answers that are straightforward, and then sort of a prompt if it's a more complex question, and that forwards you straight on to a person. So that might be something that have some value.
That does sound great. Yeah, save some time and put the live person, I guess, the actual human being, into the more complex inquiries and situations.
And I do have a dream of textbooks that in print are extremely large, very heavy, very cumbersome, of somehow being able to sort of like make them a 3D digital version where you can project them from your phone in front of you and you just use your hand without making physical contact just to turn the pages.
I would love that. That sounds so cool.
Three-dimensional books.
Three-dimensional books. And what about your library on Canvas? What's the big dream around there? Do we have any big dreams around those kind of resources, or it's all in the making?
Well, I would say that really it just needs to be easy for students to get straight to the content that's in there. So we don't really expect you to go to your library on Canvas and browse. Of course you can. But I think if we're able to have those links from your courses, you can go straight to the content that's useful to you when you need it. And that would be, I think, my great hope from that. And I think in a sort of bigger picture way, the sort of areas of your study that Rachel and I and other learning advisors and some of the librarians teach, they're so intermingled with what you're here to study. So how do you engage with your subject? How do you communicate what you've learned persuasively? How do you carry that on into your career and make good presentations or have good meetings where you can use language effectively? I think I see those two things really kind of blending, and I think that speaks to the library's ability beyond the bricks and mortar to actually do that. And I think that's quite exciting.
That's very exciting. I think that's marvellous. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap up now, but thank you guys so much for joining us today. Did you have fun?
Yes,
Yay.
absolutely.
That's all good stuff. So anyways, thank you very much for listening. You can find us on Podbean, Apple and Google Podcasts and iHeartRadio. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also follow Te Mata Puna Library Learning Services on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. See you next time.
And if you haven't seen Ghostbusters yet, I think this podcast is served
Absolutely.
as a clear enough signal that you want to engage.
You need to watch it.
Who are you going to call?
Learning advisors.
Yay!
And librarians.
Well, we're stealing that one for sure.